Hey there, and thank you so much for joining me here on my channel, Homeschool with Brittany. Right now, we are in the midst of a series that I am doing about how to establish your home education program, the 5 steps that you'll need to take in order to do that. And today's video is all about step number 4. Now, if you are just joining me for this series, each of the videos for steps 1 through 3 will be listed down below, so please go ahead and take a look at those. But otherwise, let's just go ahead and get into it. Step number 4 in beginning or establishing your home education program in your state, and this is going to be my opinion, but step number 4 should be to join a homeschool co-op. So today we're going to talk all about co-ops, what they are, why I think you should join one, how to go about doing that. And hopefully by the end of today's video, you'll have a much better understanding of what co-ops are, specifically how they differ from homeschool groups. And you'll also know whether or not they would be advantageous for you, your family, and most importantly, for your homeschooling students. So let's talk a little bit about what a homeschool co-op even is. And really, it's just an organization of like-minded individuals who are engaged in the education and the socialization of their children. So again, these are all going to be homeschooling families. They are all going to be people who have not necessarily the same educational philosophy as you do, but at least you all can agree that homeschooling or home education is the best option for your students at this point in time. So that's where that like-mindedness comes in. And so let's talk a little bit about the difference between a homeschooling co-op or cooperative and just some homeschool groups. So again, that co-op is going to be a coming together of like-minded individuals focusing on the education and socialization of kids. The difference between this and a homeschool group is homeschool groups can be pretty informal. They can be, it really is just, you've got that like-mindedness there, right? So it's a group of people coming together, but it may be for the purposes of socialization, right? So play dates, organizing play dates and outings for the students. It may be in order to offer support. So maybe like an online group or forum. Maybe it could even be something like a meetup, that kind of thing, where you're offering some type of support or some type of socialization for the families and for the students. They can also be virtual. Some of these homeschool groups may never actually meet in person. They may be made up of people from across your state, across the country, or even across the world, where you're coming together virtually and in that virtual space in order to discuss, to support each other, to have those types of conversations that maybe you can't have with other non-homeschooling families. So again, you've got more of an informal structure. They're not going to be as comprehensive as a homeschooling co-op would be, maybe not as organized, because there's going to be a lot more logistics and planning that takes place. Also, you may not see the same level of consistency with a homeschooling group as you would with a co-op. So for homeschooling groups, you can be as active or as inactive as you would like on a particular, on any given day, semester, that kind of thing. So there are going to be some people who are super active. There are going to be some people who are not active at all and may just kind of be in the background. So there are some differences there. But again, in this video, we're talking specifically about homeschooling cooperatives or co-ops. So why should you join a co-op? Why is this something that you should invest your time, your energy, and sometimes your money in when you already probably have so many other different things going on? Well, for starters, it does provide a social outlet for your kids. And really, this is something that is very important for growth and development across the lifespan. So starting in those early elementary years, even in preschool. But as you grow older, you're learning how to socialize. And in order to do that, you have to be around other people. So for us as homeschoolers, particularly if you have a smaller family like myself, where I'm a single parent and I have an only child, if we were to only stay within the confines of our home, my daughter would never really be able to socialize with people her own age and in her peer group. So these co-ops do offer a great opportunity for socialization. And again, you're socializing with people who come from, or students who come from, like-minded families as far as the reasons for choosing homeschool over maybe a traditional public or private school. So that's something to keep in mind. And really, this gives them the opportunity to make friends the way that they would make friends in a traditional school. So we really do not want to deprive them of that friendship making opportunity that homeschool co-ops provide. Now, again, of course, there are tons of other ways that your student can make friends, but homeschool co-ops are great because it really is just a built-in kind of potential friend group. Again, you got those like-minded families and like-minded students, and there is some consistency there as far as when your student will be able to see or meet up with their new friend again. One of the other reasons why I think you should join a co-op is because it helps to teach social skills and also social graces, which, even though we don't necessarily think as homeschooling parents, think about that too much, because again, we're at home, or we're in, our little bubble homeschooling our kids. So we're not thinking as much about socialization. We're putting maybe the priority on academics versus socializing our kids. But being in that setting allows them to learn how to act and how to behave around other people, particularly around peer groups and people who are in that peer groups. Because when we think about homeschooling and home education, one of the biggest critiques, one of the biggest criticisms that we receive when people wonder, well, why do you homeschool your family? Why do you homeschool your kids? Is, are they ever going to make friends? Like, are they ever going to be around people their own age? You're depriving them of that. Well, in essence, this gives them the ability to socialize. We've already talked about that, but also just kind of learn how to communicate with people their age. It allows them to learn how to interact with people in their age group, right? A lot of homeschooling students tend to be very independent. We tend to be very mature. Because they're around a lot of adults all the time, really their parents, maybe their grandparents, they know how to interact with like an older population. However, sometimes they struggle with interacting with people their own age. So having this socialization and having them in this educational setting, as opposed to really only being at home with maybe you and their siblings, is a great way for them to learn really the social graces of being an elementary school student, a teenager, that kind of thing. And it does provide students with enrichment, the ability to take academic classes, the ability to really take the courses that either us as parents are not really as competent in, or that we just really don't have the time or the energy to teach. And again, it teaches them how to learn in that classroom setting. So with that, again, they're learning how to communicate with other people, communicate with their peers, communicating with adults outside of their family and outside of their, your social circle. It teaches that communication, teaches them how to share ideas with others. It teaches them how to agree and disagree with other people, how to value other people's opinions outside of their own. And it also teaches them how to handle it when they don't have their teacher's undivided attention. And for me, I think that's something that's really important because, again, when you're homeschooling your student, it typically is you as a parent and then the student. And because this is something that you've set out to do, if they have questions, if they need help, they can always just come to you, right? Directly, right away, get their questions answered immediately. If they're in a situation like a co-op, enrichment class, or an academic class where there are other students around, the teacher is not their parent, and now they don't necessarily have as easy access to the teacher as they're used to, that's going to start teaching them some lessons about patience, about waiting, about, um, you know, not necessarily being the center of attention and how to deal with that gracefully. So again, we go back to the social graces when it comes to some of the benefits of these co-ops. You have access to classes that you otherwise would not have access to. I think about my daughter when we've been involved in co-ops. She started her involvement in co-ops when she was in elementary school. It was definitely elementary school and in middle school is when co-ops are really big. And really, some of these enrichment classes were teaching her these life skills that I had I don't want to say that I didn't have any knowledge of, but they would have been difficult for me to teach to her. So you'll find all different types of courses, enrichment courses, depending on the co-op that you are involved in. It can be a cooking course, some type of baking, sewing, again, some of these life skills, financial management and like money literacy, financial literacy, those types of courses. You'll also find in some co-ops that they're offering some of the more rigorous academic courses like some AP courses. You'll find advanced math, even things that are academic but not necessarily those core classes like theater and music and art and sports classes are all things that co-ops frequently offer to families and students that we as parents may not necessarily be well equipped to handle or teach on our own. And one of the things that I loved about co-ops and being involved in the co-ops that we've been involved in over the years is that we had the opportunity to go on and experience these group experiences, these group field trips that otherwise, yes, we could have done it on our own, but it would not have been the same as going with a group. So we've taken trips all over the place to different local, like state parks, to theme parks, to zoo, like all kinds of things that, again, yes, we have access to as individuals, but it's different doing that as an individual family versus doing it in a setting where maybe you have a guide, you have a staff member teaching and directing. They have some opportunities for hands-on experiences that otherwise we would not necessarily have access to. But then again, you have that built-in socialization as well, because other students who are also homeschooling and a part of the co-op are going to be there. So your students get to experience them outside of the academic setting, but still within the confines of your homeschooling co-op or those like-minded families as well. And then lastly, this is a big one for parents. Homeschool co-ops do a great job of supporting us as parents and as family members of these homeschooling students. You pretty much have a built-in support system of other parents that you can talk to, that you can kind of vent to if you need to, that you can bounce ideas off of, have all types of conversations that you really won't be able to have with families who are not homeschooling because they just don't understand the experience. So typically in the homeschooling co-ops that we've been a part of, the way that it works is that when the students are in class, the parents are still there. They're not in the class with the students, but they're in some central area. And this is really just a time for us to meet, for us to chat. Maybe if you need to work to get some work done, But again, this is an opportunity for a supportive environment. And really, yes, it does depend on the co-op that you are a member of as far as how supportive it can be. But really, there is nothing like having another conversation face to face with another homeschooling family, a homeschooling parent that you know you can talk to on a weekly basis, maybe form a relationship or a friendship with, that is going to be in your corner and you're going to be in their corner. And you both understand each other's experiences and, you know, what you're going through because you're going through the same thing. So, to me, that is an invaluable benefit of being a part of a homeschooling cooperative. So now the next question that you may be asking is, well, how do you find a co-op? And if you're like me in the state of Florida and within our school districts, we really don't, they don't really offer resources to homeschooling families, like a list of maybe curriculum or textbooks, or a list of your options, a list of other homeschooling, organizations, that kind of thing. They don't offer that. So you really have to go out and find these groups on your own. The first thing that I would recommend you do is just Google or find your state's home education association. So here in Florida, we have the FPEA, which is the Florida Parent Education or Educator Association. So that's where all of our homeschooling parents can go. It's a state organization that we can join that has a yearly convention, that kind of thing. Find whatever that is in your state. And typically, somewhere on their website, there will be a list of resources. And one of these resources is probably going to be a list of homeschooling cooperatives, or at least a list of homeschool groups. And once you start to visit those websites, those maybe Facebook pages, those start calling up some of the leaders or organizers of these groups and cooperatives, then you'll start to find more information on where to go and what to where to look for these co-ops. The second thing that you'll want to do, and I already kind of mentioned this, is head on over to Facebook, particularly Facebook groups. And most homeschool cooperatives will have some sort of Facebook group, or at least a Facebook page that you can go to in order to find out more about that co-op. So I would definitely recommend going there. And before you join a co-op, kind of peruse the group and see what types of conversations they're having, see how active the group is, see, just kind of get a feel for what's going on. And that will give you an idea as to whether or not you would be comfortable in this group, if it's a group that you actually want to join. There are going to be a ton of groups that are faith-based. There are also going to be a ton of groups that are secular. So you really have to just kind of think about that if that's something that is important to you. Again, whether you join a faith-based cooperative or faith-based, cooperative, or a secular cooperative, or just one that's open to everyone. It'll depend on what is of interest to you in your family. The third thing I would do is, if options 1 and 2 are not successful, then just go ahead and head on over to Google and type in homeschool cooperative or co-op, and then the name of your city or the name of your town, and see what comes up. Because you will want to join one that is pretty local, since your student will be taking classes at this, whatever the location is, physical location that they are meeting at, which means you'll be driving them to these meetings on probably a weekly basis, if not a couple times per week. And so your last question, or the last question that I'm going to address, is how much does it cost to join a homeschool co-op? Well, my answer is it really depends on a couple of different factors. It's going to depend on how comprehensive the services are that the cooperative offers. Some of them are going to be more of a social group with maybe a little bit of enrichment here and there. Others are going to be much more comprehensive in that they'll have like a full schedule of courses that your student can enroll in. They will have like legit teachers teaching them with lesson plans and activities, and it's very structured. And some of them will meet maybe a couple of times a semester, whereas others are going to meet once a week. And so for some cooperatives, if they're very comprehensive, your student could be taking classes there once a day or a couple times a day, several times a week. So that's going to be a little bit more expensive than one that is more casual, one that is more informal, one that does not offer as many services and classes. So that's something to consider. And typically the way that it works, at least the ones that we have been a member of, is that there's going to be some type of initial like enrollment fee or join fee, registration fee, membership fee, whatever it is that they call it, in order to join the actual cooperative. And then on top of that, depending on whether you want your student to take those enrichment or academic courses and how many courses you want them to take, there's going to be a cost associated with each of those. Now, the cost of the course will depend on whatever that teacher's going rate is that they charge the cooperative to teach the class. Maybe it will depend on the number of students, the types of materials that are going to be used. So some courses will require additional materials. I'm thinking like science lab type courses will require more materials than another type of course. But again, just remember that because we are homeschooling families, and for the most part, we are responsible for our curriculum that we use and the cost of that curriculum, that if your home education teacher or cooperative teacher incurs a cost, that cost will probably be passed on to you in the form of tuition. All right, so that really is it. That's all about co-ops or homeschool co-ops that I wanted to go over. If you have any other information that you would like to add to this conversation, as far as maybe your experience in co-ops, maybe some things that you think that homeschooling families or potential homeschooling families should be aware of before they join a co-op, please put those down in the comments below. It's very helpful not only for me, but also for anyone who is watching this video at any point in the future. Thank you so much for watching. In our next video, I am going to wrap up this series about the 5 steps that you need to take in order to establish your home education program. Step number 5 is all about growing or developing a thick skin. And that is for you specifically as a homeschooling parent. So please, before you start homeschooling and getting all set up and ready to go, take a look at that video to just prepare yourself emotionally and mentally for what is coming. Again, thank you so much for watching, and happy homeschooling.